Her life looks complete. Every element that the world associates with a life well lived exists inside her daily reality in abundance. The palaces, the staff, the access to things that most people spend their entire lives imagining from a distance, the security of a name that carries weight in every room it enters, the visibility that comes with being connected to one of the most recognized families in the world. She has all of it. Every measurable thing, every external marker that the world uses to determine whether a person's life is going well. And from the outside looking in, the conclusion seems obvious. She has everything. What could possibly be heartbreaking about a life that contains everything? I know the answer to that question, because I have been close enough to see what the outside cannot see. The heartbreaking part of her story is not about what she has. It is about what having everything costs, when the one thing you actually need is the one thing that cannot be given through any arrangement or any resource or any gesture made from a distance. She arrived into this life young, younger than people fully appreciate when they look at the surface of her story. She came from a world that was smaller and quieter and contained in a way that the life she entered was never going to be. And the transition between those two worlds was not something that anyone fully prepared her for. Not because the people around her did not care, but because some transitions cannot be prepared for. They can only be lived through. And living through them alone, even when surrounded by staff and family and every form of support that wealth can provide, is still living through them alone. She smiled through all of it. That is the part that stays with me most. Every public appearance, every ceremony, every occasion that required her to be present and composed and exactly what the moment asked for. She delivered it without visible seams, without any crack in the surface that would have given the watching world any reason to look more closely. She understood instinctively what was required of her in those spaces, and she gave it completely. But I saw her in the moments between, in the spaces that existed before the occasion began and after it ended, in the ordinary hours that no camera had any interest in. And in those moments, she was someone different. Not dramatically different, not unrecognizable, but quieter, smaller somehow. Like a person who had been holding something at full extension for a very long time and was finally, briefly, allowed to let their arms drop. What she carried was loneliness of a very specific kind, not the loneliness of someone who has no one around them. She was never without people, never without attention or care or the presence of others. But there is a form of loneliness that exists inside full rooms, that lives in the gap between being surrounded and being known, between being attended to and being truly seen, between having someone present and having someone present for you in the way that actually reaches the parts of a person that need reaching. That gap was something she lived inside every day, quietly, without complaint, without ever making it anyone else's burden to carry. She never asked for any of this to be different out loud. That is what made it most heartbreaking to witness. She had accepted the life she was living with a grace that was genuinely admirable and genuinely devastating in equal measure. She had made peace with the distance, with the size of the world she had married into, and the way that size made genuine intimacy complicated in ways that smaller lives are never complicated. She had adjusted herself around all of it without ever being asked to and without ever acknowledging the adjustment, even to herself. She has everything. And the most heartbreaking thing about her real story is simply this. She knows exactly what everything costs. She pays that cost every single day, and she does it without ever letting the world see the bill.